Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another week of breakdown and predictions. This week we got a massive card, man. UFC 306, headlined by one of the biggest fights that the UFC can put on right now. Sean O'Malley taking on Merab Dvalishvili. Another title fight in the co-main event between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. So a lot of really awesome stuff going on this card, and some cool events going on throughout the whole week, like usual. MMA World's always going on, and there's Bellator, there is LFA, EFC, and some other promotions this week that are going on. So definitely go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. Check out content for other promotions. I've been doing really well on my bets and predictions, just write-ups in general for other promotions. I've been cashing a lot of winning tickets, so make sure to go over there and make yourself some money. And outside of that, man, hit the like button on this video. Would really appreciate getting to 100 likes. That would be awesome. And put a comment down below if you agree with my picks, you disagree, got any questions. Would definitely be excited to hear what you guys got to say. But first fight of the night, let's get into it. Raul Rosas Jr., he's taking on Arichi Lang. And obviously, everyone knows about Raul Rosas Jr. at this point. Signed with UFC at 18 years old, the youngest fighter to ever fight for the UFC. Only 19 years old now, and he's had quite a few fights in the promotion. They've kind of given him these easy layup fights that he's been able to win, but then in his last fight, he did take a fairly decent step up and was able to get the job done over Ricky Turcios. And now I think he's taking on an even stiffer, tougher opponent in Arichi Lang, because I feel like Arichi Lang has fought similar opponents to what he's going to see from Raul Rosas Jr., and he's been able to do fairly well versus them. So we'll see if he can spoil the party. But he's a huge underdog. We got Raul Rosas Jr. currently at a minus 800 favorite on some books, so he's definitely, at least from the bookies' perspective, going to run through Arichi Lang here. But when you look at it from a style perspective, you know, really with Raul Rosas Jr., he hasn't had to show he has striking because he can just make fights, grappling fights right from the jump. He's super aggressive. He's big for the weight and usually just uses some sort of big action to close the distance and get a hold of you, take you down, and get your back and submit you early is what he's done to most guys. He did get that knockout over Terrence Mitchell, but I feel like, you know, Terrence Mitchell's really low level. It wasn't super impressive, or it didn't really show me that he had great striking or anything like that. Whereas with the Arichi Lang on the feet, he should have a significant advantage. He's a smaller guy coming up from 125 to 135, and he's fast. Because of that, he switches stance. He throws a lot of nice, slick combinations. He'll attack the body. He'll go to the legs with kicks. And this fight, I think he needs to, box more, not throw as many kicks, try to stay evasive and obviously defend those takedowns. And with the Arichi Lang, he does have decent takedown defense, but I do feel like just overall wrestling advantage, physicality advantage is pretty major for Rosas, especially early. So Arichi Lang is going to have to expect to be taken down. And he has shown, he's good at getting back up to his feet. And even if you take his back or put him in bad positions, he could stay safe, wait for that round to end and come back strong in the next round. And that's what he's going to have to do here. You'd think that round one, Raul Rosas Jr. is going to be fresh. He's going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger. He's going to have that one-track mind. He's going to be very aggressive. He's probably going to close that gap, get a hold of Arichi Lang, body lock him, maybe take his back. And Arichi Lang just has to be very careful, to avoid getting subbed out early. And the longer the clock ticks, the better chances he's going to have of working his way back into the fight. But, I mean, it's hard to predict Arichi Lang to get this victory, though. I feel like Rosas is likely going to take him down. He's going to be able to control him. And Arichi Lang isn't someone that has crazy power, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to necessarily more than likely knock Rosas out. I don't think he's going to have the power to keep Rosas from pressuring him. And I think if Rosas gets the clinch, he's just going to be able to get takedowns there more often than not. So I do believe that Arichi Lang is going to last a little bit longer in this fight. I do like the over. I think that Rosas is going to have to show his gas tank in this one. But I don't think that Arichi Lang is going to gas him out or get him too tired, because I feel like he's going to struggle to create many scrambles. And I think that even if Rosas Jr. takes him down, takes his back, and can't submit him, if he can get in that position, get that body triangle a couple rounds, I don't think he's going to get that tired off of that. So I'm personally going to say Rosas wins via late submission or decision, and I feel like the over is a decent play here at plus 110. And in this next one, we got a banger fight, man. Edgar Chyz, he's taking on Josh Van, and I think these guys are supposed to fight in the past, and the fight didn't end up going down. So I'm glad that they're rebooking this one, and it's going to happen. And Josh Van, he's coming off that first loss in the UFC where he got knocked out by Charles Johnson. And we have to see how he comes back from that. But 22 years old, he has a lot of skill. I feel like he's going to bounce back well from that. And Edgar Chyz, he hasn't fought in a while, but he has some momentum now. I mean, he fought the same guy twice, finished him twice. The first one was controversial, so they ran it back, and he finished him again. And it wasn't a great opponent with De Silva, so definitely a big step up for Chyz, but it's a fight that he's probably going to like. It's going to be a striking fight, and it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, Edgar Chyz, he does have slick striking. He's long, he's lanky, he has pretty good footwork, and he tries to throw a lot of leg kicks and then work the jab, the check hook game, and he has a really slick lead hand. He lands really effectively with it. And then he also throws some nice 1-2s, and he's decent in exchanges. But he pulls back with his chin in the air, and his leg kicks, or his legs are very stationary. He's heavy on that lead leg. I feel like you can leg kick him. He's dangerous in the first round, but I do think that he slows down fairly significantly. And that's not going to be a great thing with Josh Van. Josh Van's one of these guys where round one usually is kind of tough for him. He has to kind of take damage, get the reads going. He likes that style where he shells up a lot and lets guys throw a lot of punches. So sometimes he can get caught, like with someone throwing a barrage at him and he doesn't return with strikes, and they can land a couple shots, rock him, but most of the time he's able to weather the storm, and then he just breaks fighters with his constant pressure, that body attack, his boxing, and I feel like he's going to be able to do that to Chyz. And I think Josh Van can even mix in takedowns in this fight if he really needs to. I know that that's usually something that fighters try to do to him, but I think that Chyz just doesn't have the best wrestling. He does have a good guillotine, and he'll throw submissions up off his back, but I feel like he's just not very good off bottom. And I think he's definitely going to slow down in this fight. So I do think that the early goings could be rough for Josh Van like it has been previously. I mean, he's going to have to figure out how to get past the reach and the lead hand of Chyz. And Chyz is a little bit more mobile early on. But when Chyz starts to get a little more stationary and it becomes more of a boxing-oriented fight, I think Josh Van's going to take over and start to land heavy, start to land often. So Josh Van is going to be the prediction for me, and I think he'll get this one done in the second or third round inside the distance. And up next here, we got Yasmin Jauregui. She's taking on Ketlin Souza, and to me, this is one of the easier fights to predict on this fight card. I like Yasmin Jauregui here. I feel like Ketlin Souza, she's athletic. She has decent striking, even though I don't think her striking is really elite necessarily either. But I feel like she's going to be loading on a lot of shots. Yasmin can kind of intercept, land better, tighter boxing combinations, and ultimately I think she's going to have a big advantage on the ground. If she can get the fight to the ground, which I think she's going to be able to get takedowns, she could maybe get a finish there or at least get a dominant victory. So I'm going with Yasmin here. I just think that Ketlin is kind of one-dimensional, and I think that she relies on athleticism a lot of the time to get victories. In this fight, I don't think she's going to be able to rely on that. I think that Yasmin is going to equalize her in those areas, and she's going to be more skilled, more tenacious, and I think that she's going to get the victory. So give me the Mexican here. Give me Yasmin Jauregui to get the job done. And continuing the trend, we got another sick fight here. Manuel Torres taking on Ignasio Bahamondes. two strikers that are going to throw down, and man, I'm definitely excited for this one. I'm more excited for this one than a lot of the fights on the card. We got Manuel Torres, who isn't as technical, but he's faster, he's explosive, he's more powerful, and he kind of sends it and goes for it early, whereas Ignasio Bahamondes is very sharp, technical. He gets those reads, stays long, and can eventually, time one of those big crazy shots and get you out of there, like a knee or a big kick, or win kind of easy decision. And yeah, man, I mean, it's just going to come down to who can implement their style in this fight. I feel like early on, Manuel Torres is going to have a great chance to win like he always does. He is super fast and very good with that check hook, and he's good at coming forward and throwing 3-2s and 2-3s, and I feel like he could land that early and get Ignasio out of there. I mean, we see Ignasio get rocked early in a lot of fights. He eats a lot of lead hooks as well, and that's kind of Manuel Torres' money punch, so I kind of think that early on Ignasio is going to have to survive a storm if he is going to win this fight. And another facet where I think that Torres does have the advantage is the wrestling and the grappling. I actually am pretty impressed from the short stuff that I've seen with Torres in terms of his grappling. The only thing that I'm worried about Torres with this is the cardio and the gas tank. He hasn't had too many long fights, and if Bahamondes can extend this and start to implement his kind of style with the pot shotting, Torres maybe will slow down and Bahamondes can kind of put that pace on him and get the win. So that's the thing that I'm a little bit weary about. If Torres doesn't get that finish early, is he going to be able to maintain that pace, or is Ignasio going to kind of take over with the volume and technicality? But I just feel like Ignasio, he struggled a lot with explosive fighters. He has lost a couple fights to guys that can close the distance quick, and I think that Torres is another one of those style fighters. And Bahamondes, he's been getting rocked and hurt in a lot of fights, but he's never been knocked out. I think this could be the time that he does get finally put out early, and if Torres doesn't knock him out early, I could see a submission as well. It's just if the fight gets extended, we're going to have to see how Torres' gas tank holds up, and that's going to be the story. And I think the game plan for Bahamondes is to try to bring the fight into the second and third round. So we'll see. It's a close fight. It's a money line pick 'em for a reason, but I'm going to go with Manuel Torres. And this next one, we got a big fight between Irene Aldana and Norma Dumont, two girls that are still kind of vying to potentially be in line for a title shot. Irene Aldana has already fought for the belt against Amanda Nunes in a losing effort. Norma Dumont, she probably should have got a title fight at 145 if that was a real division, but obviously there wasn't many fights. She was kind of the de facto champion up there, beating all the number one contenders, but never got that real title shot for the belt, so dropped down to 135, won her last fight, and is now looking to kind of break through and maybe finally get that title fight that's eluded her for this whole time that she's been in the UFC. But originally I was leaning towards Norma Dumont. I thought that she would be able to use some footwork, move laterally, mix in some leg kicks, use that jab, kind of intercept Aldana, keep her at bay, and then time those takedowns, or at least that clinch, hold Aldana against the cage, and control her en route to a victory. And I do still think that if Dumont can get on top, she's going to be able to have some decent control time. I think she could control against the cage potentially too. But Irene Aldana, I ultimately think she's going to have a lot bigger advantage on the feet than I kind of originally was thinking before I kind of looked into it a little bit more again. I feel like Aldana is going to be way faster. Her footwork is going to be better. She's going to be pressuring forward and forcing that pocket fight. And I'm not too sold on Norma's chin. I feel like when she gets rocked, she shoots. And Aldana has more power than some of these other girls that have been able to fully put her out. We have seen Dumont knocked out cold before by Megan Anderson. And I just think Aldana is going to be able to use that speed, her pressure, land the bigger shots, have the better optics if the fight does go longer. And I think she has a chance to get that early finish, get a knockout in the first round or a club and sub finish. Dumont was able to win her last fight versus Jermaine Durandamy and controlled her for 2 out of 3 rounds, but Durandamy was coming off a pregnancy, and I think Aldana is just a little bit higher level than the opponents that Norma has been beating on this win streak. I think that she's just going to be a little bit too dynamic on the feet, and obviously she's kicking it off for Alexa, for Diego Lopez, and she's had a great camp. She's probably going to have very, very good high-level training and good vibes in the gym throughout the whole time that she's been getting ready for this fight, and I think that's going to be a factor. The crowd is probably going to be a factor. And I'm going to go with Aldana here to get this victory. And in this next one, we got a fight at 125 pounds between Luis Ronaldo Rodriguez and Ode Osborne. And, man, I mean, this guy, Ode Osborne, man, I'm not too good at picking his fights. So maybe go the opposite on what I think here. But honestly, I'm kind of confident in the underdog here in Osborne getting this victory. I just wasn't impressed with Rodriguez. I feel like he looked decent versus Bondar, but he was fighting a guy that didn't want to strike with him and forced the wrestling, and I feel like that's Rodriguez's best area is in the grappling. He's good at creating scrambles and eventually getting to that top position. He has a good submission game on top, but I think that he falls too in love with his hands, man, and I think that that's going to be his downfall, especially due to the circumstances. I think that's going to be a factor in this fight. I really do, because it's a main card slot. It's going to be packed in there, and I don't think Rodriguez is going to want to mix in the takedowns. I think he's going to go in there and want to throw down, have a brawl. And Rodriguez has decent boxing in the inside. He mixes those body head combos. He'll switch stance. He's definitely athletic, but I feel like he is very hittable closing that distance. I think that he's going to struggle quite a bit with Osborne's distance control, his range, landing counters off the back foot. I think that Osborne, that's his style. He's good at pressuring you and then throwing those pull twos, 1-2s. He can do it going backwards also. And I just don't think that Rodriguez has an elite wrestling threat. Osborne, he's been getting taken down and submitted by these higher level grapplers in his last few fights, but even though Rodriguez has good grappling, I think if he does get in certain positions, he could exploit and submit Osborne. I think he, for one, like I said, isn't going to be too interested in looking for many takedowns, and I think that even if he does try to wrestle, he's not a high level wrestler like that. I do think that Osborne will be able to kind of shut it down with the footwork. And if it's a stand-up fight, I just kind of favor Osborne in this matchup. I think that if he wants to continue fighting in MMA, this is a make-or-break fight for him as well. This is a type of fight where right now he's kind of down in terms of his stock majorly, but if he can get a big win over a prospect on the main card of a pay-per-view that's this hyped up, he could be right back in the mix in terms of where he was a few fights ago and be a guy that could get a big-time potential matchup next. So this is a chance for Ode to kind of jump back into the mix. And obviously for Rodriguez, they're kind of setting him up to try to get a win over a name guy in an entertaining matchup. But I'm going to slightly lean towards the underdog here in Ode Osborne just because I feel like he's going to be able to land the cleaner strikes on the feet. He's going to be a little bit sharper. He's going to be moving better. He's going to be faster, bigger. And I think that Rodriguez is going to oblige him in a stand-up fight, and I think he's going to come up short. And this next one, another sick fight. Daniel Zellhuber taking on Esteban Rivix, two guys that like to stand and bang. And if I'm Esteban Rivix, man, first round, I got to jump on Daniel Zellhuber because you see Zellhuber in a lot of fights. I mean, he's very hittable at certain portions and tends to sometimes start slow a little bit. And if Rivix can get in his grill early, force some of those exchanges, maybe land one of those crazy kicks like he did on McKinney, I think that's his path to victory because
if the fight starts to get extended, I just think that Huber's going to have the better defense, and Rivix is going to be the guy that is forced to come forward due to the range. At distance, Huber has a significantly better kicking game, even though Rivix, I really like the way that he lands these kicks in close distance. And like that kick that he landed on McKinney was out of nowhere. So I do think that Rivix kicking game is dynamic as well, but obviously with the length, if they're on the outside, Huber's going to be able to touch him when Rivix can't touch Huber. And so Rivix is going to have to pressure, try to land that check hook, get in the pocket and get in those exchanges where he is pretty dangerous, and try to catch that chin of Huber and put him out. And I think that he does have a chance to do that just because Rivix is skilled, he's talented, and he's powerful. But I do believe that over time, when Huber gets his reads and gets in that rhythm, if he does, it's going to be difficult for Rivix to be able to close the distance. Huber's going to be touching him a lot, landing a lot. And I do think that Huber also has the wrestling and the grappling advantage as well, even though I don't really see that becoming a factor here. I think if Huber really is struggling on the feet, he could potentially get a takedown or two and change the dynamic of the fight. But I am going to predict Huber gets the victory here. I just think that Rivix's win path is kind of low. He has to rely on a knockout. And I think if Huber finds his rhythm, it's going to be a kind of a longer night for Rivix here. So I do agree that Huber is the much more skilled fighter. He's the bigger guy. He's probably more athletic. It's just that slow start and the danger factor from Rivix that I think makes this fight closer than the line indicates. But I'm still going to predict that Daniel Huber gets the victory. And in this next one, these two guys are going to finally finish their business with Brian Ortega and Diego Lopez locking horns. And hopefully this one finally happens, man. I mean, the first time Ortega stepped in really short notice, he was trying to make 45s. I think he knew there was no chance of that. He made 55. And then the fight ended up not happening. So I just feel like he stepped up on short notice thinking that he could have saved the card. I think that for some reason at that time he had a goal to give money to a church or whatever he was thinking, and he just pushed his luck a little too hard for that fight, and I feel like he probably just wasn't ready to perform. So hopefully this time, he's tuned up and ready to go, and I expect him to be, because this is a pivotal fight for him, man. I feel like after that whole fight week debacle last time, if he comes out here, lays an egg, there's going to be a lot of question marks regarding Brian Ortega's future, if the UFC even thinks he wants to still continue to fight and keep him around, which they obviously will not cut him or anything, but just it would be a bad look if he comes out here and lays an egg after people are kind of conversing about his potential motivation to continue fighting, and just how infrequently he's been fighting lately. But Diego Lopez, I mean, this guy stepped up less than 24 hours notice, fought Dan Ige, and man, it was an awesome fight. Ige was able to come back in round 3 and win the round, which is crazy for a guy that took the fight the same day that it was going down. And Diego Lopez was able to move up to 165 pounds when he was preparing for a 145-pound fight a completely random opponent, and still get the victory. So Diego Lopez showed a lot there as well. But this is definitely a different level of opponent with Brian Ortega. Looking at Brian Ortega, I mean, this guy, he does have the one injury loss to Yair, which he rectified in his last fight by proving that he was the better fighter and finishing Yair. And outside of that, there's only 2 losses at featherweight and in general, or to Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, 2 all-time greats. So we're talking about a guy that's beaten legends and only lost to the absolute cream of the crop, whereas Diego Lopez, he's been incredibly impressive in his run. He's gotten some really amazing quick finishes, dangerous dude, but obviously he doesn't have the pedigree of an Ortega, and this is his chance to build his name off of Ortega and move into that top upper echelon and kind of prove that he's ready for that next level. And I think that featherweight's been kind of logjam for a long time until more recently when Ilya took the belt, and it would be good for the UFC for Lopez to get this win and kind of become a contender. But I still think there's a lot of question marks, and I feel like Ortega is definitely a big live underdog to get this victory here. I mean, when you're looking at it from a fight perspective, I think early on Lopez, he's going to be the faster, more dynamic guy, and Lopez likes to counter, with big punches. He has power and speed, nice uppercuts, and good straights. But if he can't get Ortega out of there early, which has been an impossible task thus far in his career, I think that the stand-up will become very competitive because Ortega is going to be pressuring forward. Ortega has the better boxing and the better cardio. If they're in the pocket, Ortega is going to be, in my opinion, a little bit sharper early on, where Lopez can be dynamic and land those big 1-2 strike combinations with speed. He's going to be maybe getting to the spot first and more dynamic than Ortega. But I feel like as the fight goes on, if Ortega can keep that pressure on Lopez, we saw Lopez in his last fight, for instance, with Dealy, get kind of roughed up in round 3. And Brian Ortega is that round 3 king, man. He works his way into the fight. When he starts to see you slowing down, he'll pick up the pace. Big, huge featherweight for the weight class, so Lopez doesn't have that big advantage in terms of size, which he usually has over the majority of fighters. And Ortega endures, he has the cardio and kind of breaks you late with his finishing ability. And man, I mean, until I see Ortega go out there and just totally look done to me, I'm going to back him here in this spot. I feel like he looks solid against Yair. He did get almost finished early, and there's going to be potential for Lopez to club and sub, which would be very impressive, or knock out Ortega, which would also be impressive. But I think if he can't get him out of there early, I feel like Ortega's going to work his way into the fight with this pressure, with this body lock game. He'll be able to win, I think, the third round, especially just off cardio and experience alone. And Lopez is one of these guys where he tends to slow down and he will give in and kind of concede rounds or defeat. And Ortega is the complete opposite. I think he's a total absolute dog, and I feel like that's a factor in this fight, just the mentality of both fighters. I think that Lopez is a little bit more breakable, and Ortega, I think he's going to be able to compete fine on top, which is something that a lot of fighters, they don't have that confidence against Diego Lopez, because I do feel like Diego Lopez's defensive wrestling isn't necessarily that great. That's why I do think that Ortega could take him down, even though Ortega isn't an elite wrestler in his own right. I think he'll be able to take Lopez down, and instead of other opponents having the fear of Lopez submitting them, I don't think Ortega's going to have that same fear. I think that he's going to take down Diego Lopez, have the confidence to hold him down, control him on the mat, maybe even advance into more dominant positions and get the finish himself, especially if Lopez starts to fatigue. So I'm actually going to predict Ortega gets his 6th third-round finish in the UFC and end that Lopez hot streak. But on to the co-main event, we got the first title fight, Alexa Grasso defending her belt against Valentina Shevchenko. These girls are having a trilogy here, and we'll see who ends up on top in this rivalry. Obviously, the first fight, Alexa Grasso came in huge underdog. Shevchenko was a long reigning dominant champion. Grasso was able to get the back, lock in that rear naked choke, which is iconic at this point, and snatch that belt from Valentina Shevchenko. But second fight, there was a little bit of controversy, which is what has led to this third title opportunity for Shevchenko. And if you remember, it was a draw, but one of the judges had a 10-8 round for Alexa Grasso, which was very debatable and, honestly didn't make any sense. So, in a way, Shevchenko kind of got screwed out of a victory that night, and it was a draw. It wasn't a definitive victor, so Alexa Grasso and Valentina are going to run it back again. And I think this is obviously the final opportunity for Valentina to retain or to regain UFC gold. She's 36 years old, and she's not going to get another opportunity if she loses this fight. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised, win, lose, or draw, to see Valentina put the gloves down after this one. I know that she's not someone that really, in my opinion, is going to tip her hand that she is going to do that. But I feel like it would be a good spot to end it for her. But who knows? I mean, I think that she obviously, it seems like she still has a lot of confidence in herself, but we'll see. And stylistically, I mean, we obviously know how these girls match up, how the fight's probably going to go. We got Alexa Grasso, who is going to be pressuring forward. She has the better boxing, and she wants to get in the pocket, get in those exchanges where she has the faster hands, the more powerful hands, and she's shown and proven that she's been able to hurt Valentina, rock her, and we haven't really seen Valentina be able to hurt Alexa yet. So if Alexa can get in exchanges, force more brawls where both girls are connecting, she's going to likely have the durability advantage, and she obviously has proven that she has the power advantage. But Valentina is faster. She has the better footwork. She likes to kind of hang back, then kind of pop and pot shot you with some single shots, and her kicks are effective on the outside. Alexa has done a good job of kind of negating the kicking game of Shevchenko a little bit by pressuring into her kicks and using that to get to the back or get into these wrestling grappling exchanges where Grasso has been effective for certain moments. But in my opinion, we've seen when Shevchenko is fresh and she has the cardio, she's the significantly better wrestler, and she's able to take down Alexa Grasso very easily and control her on the mat. But what's happened to Valentina in the first fight, I think that she was more confident in exchanging and striking with Alexa, and she realized in that matchup that Alexa is a lot better than she thought. But in the second fight, Valentina had a good game plan. She, in my opinion, was definitely the winner in that one, I thought. But she slowed down in the later rounds, shot a couple bad takedowns where Alexa was able to reverse, get on top, and it just seems like Alexa is a little bit more vicious, man. When she gets into these positions, she'll throw a ground and pound. She'll be a little bit more impactful and memorable with her offense. And on top of that, she has the crowd. I mean, she had it in the last fight. She has it in this fight. And in these close battles where maybe Valentina is kind of giving up octagon control for the majority of the fight, getting pushed back, it could, screw with the judges like it did the first time around, or the second time, excuse me. But I'm going to go with Valentina in this one. I just feel like she's going to be able to pull it out of her hat. I know people are doubting her this time. The first two fights, she was a fairly sizable favorite. Obviously, the first one, she was a huge favorite. But this fight, she's the underdog. And I think that if she comes in here with the same game plan she had in fight 2 and has a little bit improved cardio, she's going to be able to get the job done a lot more clearly. And I think that she's won the majority of the rounds. It's just Alexa was able to catch her and finish her in the first fight. Second fight, one of the judges had a 10-8 for Alexa, and obviously the aforementioned controversy there. But I think that Valentina is going to be clean, tactical, and get the victory in this fight and make it 1-1-1, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I hopefully don't want them to do another rematch. I mean, I'm just kind of sick of that. We saw that with Brandon Moreno, and there's been a lot of rematches lately in title fights. But I think Valentina is going to get the victory and get her belt back here. So Valentina Shevchenko is going to be my prediction here, and I'll say she wins via decision. And last but not least, man, we got the main event. Sean O'Malley defending his title against Merab Dvalishvili in one of the most anticipated fights of 2020-24. And, man, I'm really looking forward to this. This is complete contrast of styles. These guys don't like each other. There's been a long build-up for this fight. Obviously, Sean O'Malley knocked out Merab Dvalishvili's main training partner to claim the belt, so this has been brewing for a long time. Even before Sean O'Malley fought Aljamain Sterling, obviously there was that meme with Merab stealing Sean O'Malley's jacket and everything like that. So, man, I mean, Merab Dvalishvili has been calling out Sean O'Malley for years and years, and he's finally getting his wish, and it's going to be with the biggest prize on the line, the UFC title, and it's just a phenomenal matchup. I mean, Sean O'Malley, since winning the belt, went on and had a really, really excellent performance against Chito Vera, was able to avenge that loss, and now he's looking to take care of business against the number one contender, a guy that's on a 10-fight winning streak, and cement his position as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And this is one of the shows that the UFC's probably spent the most money on ever in their promotion's history. They're putting a ton of marketing dollars into this fight, and they're letting Sean O'Malley be the man closing it out. So obviously they're putting the ultimate confidence in him and kind of stamping him as potentially the future number one star in the company if he can get by a machine in Merab Dvalishvili. But man, I mean, everyone kind of knows the whole thing, the storylines going into the fight. They want to know more about the matchup, how these guys are going to look against each other, and who I ultimately think is going to win. So let's get into that. I mean, obviously, I think it's pretty clear what both fighters are going to have to do in terms of where the fight's going to be if they win the fight. Merab's not going to be able to strike with O'Malley, and Sean O'Malley is, I think, going to be a little bit safer on the ground, but he's not going to want to be wrestling and grappling with Merab Dvalishvili. So obviously on the feet, that's where the fight's going to start, and there's a huge advantage for O'Malley there. And it's a very difficult matchup for Merab because you got a guy that is so good at switching stances. He has just phenomenal footwork. He's moving side to side. He's so hard to back up. He's a sniper. He's catching you with the straight left, straight right. He can time that rear knee and kind of just bring that rear leg up there. And just so technical, man. The guy's very rarely getting out of position, very sharp. He always comes in with great game plans. He's composed. His cardio is always pretty high level if he can maintain or control the pace of the fight with his own striking. And in this fight, I feel like he's going to want to do a lot of switching stances because that's going to change the distance that Merab has to close for the takedowns. And I feel like he's going to want to throw a lot of kicks up the middle. I think straight kicks will be effective. Attack the legs with a lot of leg kicks and just look to stay off the cage. And I do feel as if O'Malley gets taken down, especially early when he's more fresh, he's going to be able to get up fairly easily. I liked his get-up game against Petr Yan. I feel like he was able to show good grappling defense in that fight. And Merab isn't necessarily a guy that's like an elite-level top controller. He's more someone that relies on putting that pace on you, getting as many takedowns as needed to win the fight, and just never stopping. So Sean, obviously, he's going to have a lot of ways to win the fight with the movement. He's going to be trying to snipe Merab as he's coming in, and Merab leaves a lot of openings. If you look at historically how he fights, he's going to have to change up his entries in this one because he can't open up really wide against O'Malley. I also don't like the way that Merab sometimes will just shell up and kind of duck down because you could run into a knee, you could run into a front kick up the middle, something like that. And Merab just can't shoot in on a single leg at distance against Sean because he has a lot of these weapons that he can bring up the middle and catch you as well. And just physicality-wise, athleticism-wise, I feel like O'Malley has a big advantage. But for Merab, I think that he needs to show a little bit of an evolution and kind of just a differentiation in his striking than he's shown in other fights. I feel like he needs to switch stances more in this fight. He needs to kind of try to mirror the stance that Sean O'Malley's in the way that Petr Yan did, because that allowed Petr Yan to cut the cage off a lot better than other O'Malley opponents. If Merab can safely switch stances and be defensively sound, it will close that distance that he has to kind of go through to get the takedown if they were kind of in open stance. So I think that that's a big thing for Merab in this fight that he has to do. I think that Merab needs to try to cut off Sean O'Malley with kicks, try to attack with a lot of leg kicks, and he just has to bring that same constant pressure that he always does, but just be a little bit smarter the way that he's closing the distance. He can't open up, and he can't just shoot these blind single legs at space. And we've seen Merab get rocked, get hurt, almost get knocked out by Marlon Moraes, and Sean O'Malley's a more pinpoint finisher than these guys, and if Merab leaves these openings and gets clipped, O'Malley could become the first guy to knock him out the same way that he knocked out Aljamain Sterling. But we did see in that Sean O'Malley versus Sterling fight as well, where O'Malley was kind of off balancing himself a couple times with kicks, and I think that Merab definitely has a clear path to victory as well. He just needs to, like I said, close that gap safely, and if he can get it on the legs, he's going to get the takedowns. He's going to be able to get to that wrestling right position and kind of just wear on the gas tank of O'Malley. And I think the winner of this fight is going to look extremely dominant. I think if Sean O'Malley wins, it's probably going to be an early knockout, and if it's not, it's going to be very similar to the Cheeto fight. Merab takes an ungodly amount of damage just because he's so tough, but I think it will be a knockout win within the first 3 rounds if Sean O'Malley is victorious in this matchup. And if Merab wins, I feel like it's just going to be an absolute grind fest when Merab is able to get on him from the early going, make Sean a little tired, make Sean not know exactly what to do in terms of he is thinking too much of the takedown. Merab's landing strikes on him and then kind of Peter Yaning him the way that he did Peter Yan, where he had Peter Yan just kind of frozen. And yeah, man, I feel like both guys have clear ways to win this fight. To me, I've just been going back and forth so much. I feel like you should pick Sean here. I mean, but I'm going to go with Merab. I just feel like Merab is going to get it done somehow. I just got that feeling, and I'm going to go with it. I think that he's going to be able to break Sean O'Malley and get this victory here. So I'm going to pick Merab. I think that he's going to be able to do what I said. He's going to kind of mirror the stance a little bit better, switch stances more than he has in other fights, use his kicks to kind of cut the cage off well, and get the takedowns going early where that opens up his hands. Maybe he'll even rock Sean O'Malley at some point on the feet where it changes that dynamic of the fight significantly just because O'Malley's sticking to the takedown and Merab comes with some big shots. And I do feel like Merab needs to throw with a little more venom in this fight at certain times when he sees the openings and feels like he is safe to do so, because he has to show Sean that there is a big threat coming back at him. It can't just be pace and pressure and wrestling. I think that there has to be a more finishing threat from Merab. But ultimately, obviously, Sean, I think he even has the better finishing threat in terms of the submission threat, because the guillotine, I do think, is something that Sean should use to try to defend the single. And maybe he could hurt Merab and catch the gilly. But I'm just going to slightly edge this fight to Merab. I think he's going to win this one. He's going to break Sean with the pressure and either get that late finish or get a decision and get that belt. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching this full card video, UFC 306 breakdown and predictions. As far as my most confident pick in my parlay of the week, for my most confident pick on this card, I feel like I got to go with Yasmin Jauregui on that one. And in terms of the parlay of the week, I'm going to go with Yasmin and Josh Van. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button. Like I said at the beginning of the video, let's try to get to 100 likes. Got quite a few bets for this fight card already. This is actually going to be one of my bigger slates in a while for UFC. And I'm going to have bets on Bellator and some other promotions as well. So go to patreon.com/PredictionGuru. Get access to that also. And besides that, guys, come check out the live stream on Friday. We're going to be streaming again, giving you guys a live stream more from a betting perspective. You could ask some questions as well. Be inclusive in the chat, and I'll answer your questions there. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back soon, and I'll talk to you guys later.